Let's paint a realistic painting of two girls at the ocean with watercolors while we chat about a new perspective on how to approach building an art habit using simple methods based on the psychology of the brain. We'll be looking at studies and interesting concepts that I learned from Atomic Habits by James Clear, which you might find helpful in developing an art habit and psychologically unlocking your artistic potential. To create a habit and actually stick with it, we first need to understand the building blocks that make up a habit in the first place. Habits are formed when a behavior has been repeated enough times to become automatic. Your brain is constantly adapting to its surroundings and problem solving. Throughout our lives, when we encounter a situation or feeling, our brain comes up with solutions, and if the solution solved the problem or got you successfully out of that situation, your brain subconsciously stores it for later. Then, when you once again encounter a similar situation or feeling, instead of actively thinking for a solution this time, your brain automatically remembers what worked before and tells you to repeat the successful action. And the more often you encounter that situation, that cue, the more automatic your reaction to it will be. This is a good thing because it saves you time and energy in your decision making throughout the day. However, as we know, this also has a flip side. Your brain usually chooses the easiest option at the moment, which will give you the most immediate reward. However, a lot of times, the most immediate reward isn't the best for the long run, such as opening social media the moment you feel overwhelmed or eating easily reachable unhealthy snacks when you're hungry. This brings us to our first simple method of creating an art habit. Make it easy. If you're wondering why you haven't been able to keep an art habit and draw or paint consistently, perhaps take a look at your workspace, the place where you usually create art. Do you even have a workspace? Having an organized space to create art where you can easily access your art supplies does wonders in eliminating the hassle of taking out and setting up your art supplies. The preparation process and the ordeal of cleaning up afterwards can be making you dread the process of starting any artwork in the first place. I go more in depth about this in my previous video, which I will link for you in the description down below if you're interested. At first for this painting, I didn't have any ideas and was feeling kind of stuck. Something I usually find helpful when this happens is to just look into myself and see what I'm feeling, what is on my mind in the moment, and based on those feelings, I choose the theme or mood of my painting, which is a great starting point and gets the rest of the painting to fall into place. This time, as the weather keeps getting colder where I live and it's snowing, I can't help but miss the ocean and the sun and the warmth, which is why for this piece I chose to paint two girls at the ocean. Something to keep in mind when starting a new habit is that no matter how much you want to draw more consistently and see a change regarding your consistency to make art, if you don't change anything, nothing will change. However, it's important to not underestimate the power of small changes. We often convince ourselves that in order to make a drastic change in our lives, we have to make some groundbreaking and incredible improvement. Turns out, though, that simply improving by 1% each day can make your improvement bigger and more significant in the long run. As James Clear states in Atomic Habits, the difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Here's how the math works out. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you'll decline nearly down to 0. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something much more. Habits are the result of consistent small repeated actions over a longer period of time. This also means that it takes time to see concrete results. Drawing for hours at a time one day won't make you a pro artist overnight. Similarly, working out for a week won't get you in shape, and writing one page won't make you an author. It's easy to dismiss these small changes because one small action doesn't seem significant in and of itself. It's also easy to let bad habits slide because we tell ourselves that it's fine for just this once. Letting something slide one time is fine, as long as you get back on track the next day. But repeatedly making unfavorable choices over time eventually compounds and can be the deciding factor between being where you are or where you could be. This is demonstrated through this interesting fact written on page 17 of Atomic Habits, which goes like this. The impact created by a change in your habits is similar to the effect of shifting the route of an airplane by just a few degrees. Imagine you are flying from Los Angeles to New York City. If a pilot leaving from LAX adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south, you will land in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. Such small change is barely noticeable at takeoff. The nose of the airplane moves just a few feet, but when magnified across the entire United States, you end up hundreds of miles apart. So how can we take this concept and apply it to creating art more consistently? As Robert Henry once said, the object isn't to make art, it is to be in a wonderful state which makes art inevitable. The key to creating an art habit and sticking with it isn't focusing on making a masterpiece, it's simply making more art. As we just learned, the secret to great growth is small changes. So when establishing an art habit, start small. Create a goal for yourself so small and simple that you can't help but get it done, and you know you will be able to sustain it in the long run. For instance, you can just draw daily for 5 minutes. It might seem like not much, but the main focus is to get yourself used to drawing more often, but with low commitment, which makes it more likely that you will keep it up. Eventually, you can slowly keep adding on time, or draw more one day and less the other. The minimum amount of time, though, is 5 minutes. This is just an example, though. Any routine regarding making art that you come up with will be great if it works for you. Personally, what I do is paint or draw one week, and the next week I focus on editing my videos. I think something else to consider is that life happens and sometimes things don't go exactly as you had planned, so just go with the flow and do your best. Speaking of going with the flow, even when crazy things come your way, in the middle of this painting, I went to bring a lamp to my room so that the lighting would be alright even when I painted after sunset. As I was carrying the lamp, the heavy metal base screwed off and fell onto my toe. I'm so grateful that my toe is in one piece, but it got badly bruised and I couldn't really walk, much less paint. After a day's rest, I figured out a way to paint on a comfy chair while moving my foot as little as possible. Something else to keep in mind is that scientifically, growth isn't linear. Take a look at this graph from Atomic Habits. As the caption reads, we often expect progress to be linear. In reality, the results of our efforts are often delayed. It is not until months or years later that we realize the true value of the previous work we have done. This can result in a valley of disappointment, where people feel discouraged after putting in weeks or months of hard work without experiencing any results. However, this work was not wasted. It was simply being stored. It is not until much later that the full value of previous efforts is revealed. You might be thinking, if I haven't been able to keep up an art habit, why would this time be different? Let me share with you a point which is what I think is the driving force behind why it can be so hard to keep up any habit. Interestingly enough, it all comes down to boredom. I feel like around self-improvement, there tends to be a lot of emphasis on motivation and wanting to do something. If you watch self-improvement videos, you'll know that they usually focus on the inspiration and motivation aspect, like why you should do this, or you're wasting your life, do this instead, or I started doing this and it changed my life. And that's not to say getting motivated or inspired to change is useless. It's not. However, it turns out that this is not what makes you stick with a habit. Because there is so much emphasis on passion when starting a habit, when we try to change something in our lives and our motivation wears out, we get depressed and discouraged because we are led to believe that successful people have this endless reserve of drive and passion. But turns out that's not true. The difference between successful people and those who tried and gave up is this: successful people still show up even when things get boring. Becoming a master in any craft takes years worth of practice and dedication. However, the more you practice something, the more routine it becomes, and your interest starts to fade. Page 234 of Atomic Habits states that the greatest threat to success is not failure but boredom. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. The outcome becomes expected, and as our habits become ordinary, we start derailing our progress to seek novelty. Perhaps this is why we get caught up in a never-ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business idea to the next. As soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we begin seeking a new strategy, even if the old one was still working. As Machiavelli noted, men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for a change as much as those who are doing badly. Based on this, the more you experiment with your artwork and try new things and keep yourself from getting bored, the better chance you have of sticking with your art journey. For this painting, I'm also using a new kind of Yupo paper, which is a paper with a more waxy finish, which can be used for both watercolors and acrylics. Just like any type of paper, Yupo paper has a wide variety of textures depending on the company, and with this piece, I'm trying a new kind of Yupo paper, which is thinner and more waxy than what I've tried before. Hopefully, these simple methods and perspectives on how to approach building an art habit will help you psychologically unlock your artistic potential. If anything in this video was helpful and speaks to you, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you for watching.